Hello and welcome to Cardinal Weekend 2020, albeit a virtual event, but we are thrilled to be able to meet with you today to talk specifically about Catholic University Athletics. My name is Sullivan and I'm the Director of Athletics here at the institution. And it is a pleasure to serve as your MC for this Coaches Conversation segment. We certainly hope that you enjoy it. I'm joined by a handful of coaches, including a few alums, and all are looking forward to sharing their experiences with you. Typically, we'd all be together in the alumni tent by the Endowed family tennis courts, but of course, now we come to you remotely. Our panelists today are, and we'll start right here on my left, Rachel Palumbo, our head coach of our field hockey program. To her left, Bridget Power, the Jamie Roberts Endowed assistant coach for women's basketball and a member of the class of 2017. And then finally, Mike Gutelius, the Vinny and Ellen Sica Endowed head coach for our football program and a proud member of the class of 1992. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. Glad you could be here.
Great to join you, Sean.
Thanks for having us, Sean.
Yeah.
All right, so I have a series of questions that we're going to get into, but of course there is one primary topic we must touch upon immediately, and that's of course COVID. So we're starting to get going as a department, getting active, team activities, but looking back over the last 6 months or so, how has this experience with COVID affected your teams? How are they doing? How are they managing it? Rachel, why don't we start with you? How's your team doing with all of this?
Well, it's certainly been a challenge, of course, that we've had to tackle, but we've come to the conclusion that we can proceed with gratefulness and gratitude in ways in which we haven't before. A lot of our practices are centered around gratitude and a gratefulness to be here and be together in a separated but together capacity. I think it's brought us more together, even though we've been more apart than ever with some of the social distancing guidelines. But it has brought us together in a way that I could have never imagined and have been really impressed with the way that they've handled it.
Bridget, have you seen the women on the basketball team relate to one another differently? Is there kind of a silver lining of all of this? How are they coping with all?
I think for us at women's basketball, we've been pleasantly surprised with how patient our girls have been. Just the waiting process over the last 6 months to get back together and be on the court together in a more normal capacity. But we've also just seen them take advantage of all this individual time that they've had to work on their own skills and develop even further. Just to see their work ethic and their dedication to getting better, and then sharing that with each other through different communication channels has been pretty amazing.
Mike, you have a roster of over 100 student athletes. I can imagine there's just a wave of emotions between all of those young men. How are they managing all of this, and how are you managing keeping your arms around such a large roster in such a difficult period of time?
Yeah, it's been unlike anything else. I mean, it's really just when you have a group of guys that are so focused and want to get out there, they're not that patient. So it's good to hear that women's basketball, our guys are not that patient. So I've had to pump the brakes a few times on making sure that they're following the guidelines they need to follow. But with that said, it's been wonderful to have a great staff that helps me engage with that number of guys. So our staff really has taken on themselves to make sure we're having meetings that aren't just X's and O's, that we're checking in welfare checks with the guys and making sure we keep track of how their families are doing and how they're doing. And that's as big a part of it as anything, because, for football, the locker room experience is so much of what revolves around, how you function as a team, how you grow as a group. So to lose that, we've had to find other ways to do it. And really, Zoom calls are great, but it's much more a Zoom call with 105 guys is really hard to be close. So we break it out into smaller groups, and then the guys connect with each other. And I've been really impressed with the upperclassmen reaching out electronically to everybody else to make sure that everybody knows that when we do get the green light, we're going to hit it and go.
So I'm imagining that the pandemic has, and I mentioned it just a couple minutes ago, but has produced emotions in our young people that are probably different than what we'd experience mentoring them during normal times. I'd be really interested in knowing how conversations with recruits, even younger individuals, recruits, students who aren't here yet, what sort of stressors are they feeling? How has recruiting had to change in the middle of a pandemic? Bridget, are your conversations with recruits a little different now than they were 7 months ago?
Definitely. Going on tours or having Zoom conversations with people, the first sentence out of my mouth is, during a normal year or in a normal situation. I find myself saying that all the time. But in terms of stressors, I think a lot of the kids are just facing challenges with whether or not their school is virtual or a hybrid model, or we've even met a few young women who are actually in school full-time because they have that opportunity with a smaller school setting. But that's been the major piece. Same thing with our girls and how they've been patient and optimistic. I've seen that a lot with high school students now. I think they're still just trying to take advantage of the opportunities that they have to come and visit campuses and see what they like about different colleges. So I think they're making the best of not a great situation.
Mike, how has recruiting changed for you in the age of COVID?
Yeah, a lot like Bridget, you have to lead with this, let them know that this is going to be a disjointed process. And two things really for us. One is we've relied so heavily on our team to help us recruit in the past that spending time with the guys is usually what lets a young recruit know, oh, these guys are like me. These guys want the same things I want. They care about the things that I care about, and I fit in here and that's just not an option right now. So now we're trying to do is again, like everything else, have them connect virtually if possible with our team and spend some time asking questions and finding things out. So that's a huge part of what we're doing, is finding ways for them to still connect with our players, because the guys the recruits might think I'm the greatest, and I hope they do, but they're not hanging out with me on a Thursday evening, you know what I mean? And if they are, they're probably not the guy that they're probably getting a phone call from me about why they missed that English class when they shouldn't have, or something like that. But the other side of it is that they are out of order in the recruiting calendar. So a lot of things, it's such a set piece pattern. We do this, then we do this, then we do this, and it all grows to something. So if I had to explain to them, we may do things in traditional years that have been item number 4 on a recruiting process. Well, we may do them first now, we may do them second, and helping them understand that there's no handbook for this, there's no manual. And so what we're trying to do is help them get the information they need to make a good decision for the rest of their lives. And I think when that's put out for them, that I'm there to help them find the right school. And if that's beneficial to them, then we're going to do it in a way that would not be done in a normal year.
Definitely the loss of overnight visits and stuff like that, I agree. And recruits being able to make that connection with our current players is a huge hit. But we are making use of Zoom and connecting them in that way. I think the good thing about our program, and I'm sure a lot of other programs here at Catholic, is that we start the recruiting process pretty early, so we make those connections with those kids. And so they already know most of what they need to know about the school and about us as a coaching staff, but then the challenge now is getting them to that connection with our players, I think.
Yeah, and I think the biggest hurdle in the recruiting piece is going to be, how are we going to close? How are we going to get a commitment? Because the typical, especially for football, the typical thing was to go through the season, maybe have an unofficial visit where they come watch a game, and then you spend a little more time with them, and then they would spend some time on campus in a more determining way, whether that was an overnight or just spending time with the team. And then following that, you say, okay, where are you? Are you ready? And so now I'm going to have to find a way on how to ask them, and as we're doing, is saying, what else can I tell you? Are you ready for a decision? And that's going to be where we're going to have to be really innovative to make sure they get what they need to make a good family decision.
Rachel, I'm really interested in, the idea, you being in your first year here at Catholic, and I alluded to it a little while ago. You're still trying to develop relationships, with your roster. But in speaking about something that can be really fun and positive, how are you feeling about your team? And when we do have the opportunity to play games, and we certainly hope it's in the spring semester, how are you feeling about your chances? What do you think the squad's going to be able to produce?
I've had my eye on this team for a while. So I have a really good feeling about the young women that I get to work with each day, and they come together as a unit in a way that I've always recognized and looked for in the stats, even if I haven't been here in DC. I believe we have a unique area here in the DC area for them to grow in their academics, but also, this is a great place for us to pull in recruits. But really, our current team, our current squad, I think they're ready to go. They're just waiting on the okay from us.
Well, we certainly hope to give it as soon as possible. So, Bridget, you've been with the team for a number of years, and we'll get a little bit deeper into that concept, later. But how are you feeling about the makeup of your squad? And you got to the conference championship game last year. Unfortunately, it was a tough one, but most everyone's back. How do you feel going into this new season about your competitive chances?
Well, thank you for bringing up the conference championship last year. We were a young group last year, and I think in a lot of ways, and Coach Donahue and I talk about this a lot, we kind of overachieved in our eyes. We were just so surprised with how well they handled so much of the pressure, this young group that we had. And then we obviously still had some areas to grow in, and I think the girls have taken this off season to start to do that on their own. And so as patient as they have been, we as a coaching staff are getting very anxious to obviously start working with them collectively, because we know the potential that we have to be great this year.
Fantastic. And Mike, how are you feeling about the competitive chances of your team going into a new year? We'll see how how many games we can play throughout the spring, but how are you feeling about the competitive piece?
I'm really excited about these guys. This fall would have been my fourth fall back at Catholic, and these guys that are seniors are really the first recruiting class that I worked on when I landed here. And so we've got a group of guys, there's 21 of them that are all in, and they've been all in for 4 years, and I've relied on them heavily through the growth. We've been improving each year. Last year, very, very difficult year where we showed tremendous signs of improvement and lost a couple of close ones that I wish had gone, and you always wish they'd gone the other way, but it was, 2 double overtime losses, a few things like that, where these guys they're very close. So, I'm not sure how good we were going to be in terms of, is this going to be a team that pushes for the conference championship and beyond? Or are we going to be, having a really good winning season? Where were we? But somewhere in there this group was going to land. Somewhere between a nice winning season, which hasn't happened, in a good bit for the football program, compared to were we going to win the conference? Are we going to, and the games we get in the spring, however that format gets finalized, these guys are ready to really leave their mark on Catholic. And just like the guys before them that have helped create this culture that we now have, but what this senior class has done in growing and holding together, and now keeping the positive mentality even through the struggles we currently have with the virus, they can't wait to go out and show what they can do. And that's what I'm excited about, because this is the most talented group I've had in 4 years.
Fantastic. Rachel, Mike was talking about the concept of creating culture, and it absolutely takes a series of years to create kind of that foundational experience, and everyone's on board and all of that. So you've been here for a handful of months. You're trying to create your own culture. What goes into building something anew, a new culture for Catholic field hockey?
Right. Well, I think you can think about it in a lot of different ways. So for me personally, I've kind of broken it down to where are they now, where do they want to be, and how do I help them get there? So the current program, the current players on this current team have said from the get-go, our first phone call, Coach, I want to win. Every single athlete. And it makes my job 100 times better and 100 times easier, because I know that they're in it to win it. But to create a culture and a program that is united is a different process. So for our coaching staff, we are looking to create a foundation for success, and that is creating a common language. And our common language, we all speak the same way. We know exactly what is expected of us from the coaching staff, from the seniors, from the juniors, as it trickles down. Everyone is held to a high expectation. And if we can have a common language, a common foundation, the building happens and we can be solid and really move towards a successful season, winning the conference championship, going beyond, making that hard, strong run. And we have the confidence from there on to go move forward.
Bridget, I will assume, because it's been 100 years since I coached last, but I would assume that you were referring to, I think you had 11 freshmen last year, 11 first-year student athletes, which is remarkable in and of itself. But I would assume you and Coach Donahue had to kind of approach instruction of that team a little differently than, well, now you have a very, very large sophomore class. Your team has gotten older in a sense. So how is it different coaching a predominantly first year or younger team versus an older, more well-established team? What's different about those two experiences?
Well, to Rachel's point about like the language we use and the way we speak to each other, with a group that young, it's all new to them. I mean, there's so many challenges that come with transitioning into college that you stack that on top of being an athlete and trying to find your way through this new program that you have no experience with. So I think that's a challenge for any freshman student athlete at the collegiate level. But now that they have a year under their belt, I think it's just going to make it that much easier for us to communicate with them, whether it's about on the court things or off the court things. And I think what's also made that easier for us is our leadership being willing to take those younger players under their wing. I've been amazed over the years with just how our upperclassmen have taken these new players into their family, basically. And that's definitely a huge part of our culture, is that, Coach Donahue says it all the time, that we don't only have to like each other, we have to love each other, we have to treat each other like family. And I think that's been a really important piece for us.
Mike, how have you seen the culture of your program change over the 4 years that you've been here? Because for the first few years, you had very, very small senior classes for a variety of different reasons, a small group of young men who should be the leaders, could be the leaders based on experience and longevity. But now you have this group that is established. They're the leaders. How have you seen the culture change over your 4 years at the helm?
It's initially coming in as a new coach with smaller senior classes in junior and sophomore, and really just sort of a large freshman class. it really had to be coach driven, establishing what are our beliefs. It's the sort of second year, there was a real, egalitarian leadership style. Everybody was sort of equal, and it was because now that first sort of freshman class was sophomores, and there was a very small senior class and a small junior class, and so everybody was on the same plane, and that still required a coach driving it. And what we've really landed at now, 2 years from there, is a place where we have agreed on what we believe, and those beliefs determine how we should behave. And those behaviors now come from the top down in our senior class, not in any oppressive way.
And it's not necessarily from you.
And it's not from me anymore.
Yeah.
It's now we're all singing the same song. We all know how it's done here. We know what's important, Like I tell the guys all the time, you got to be the guy that puts the shopping cart back at the grocery store, not the guy that leaves it by the car and drives away. And just that sort of mentality pervades the team now, which, may have not, which I used to have to sort of tell them that, but now it's at a point where I'll see a senior just say, hey, that's not how we do it here. And when it comes from them, I think it has a much bigger impact than, old coach saying, I told you to do it this way. I sound like a barking dog all the time. So now when I chime in, I think I have a higher level of impact, the same way as a peer-to-peer correction has a different impact. And it's a much more natural and a typical leadership style on championship type teams. And that's not to say we're champions yet, but that's what we're aiming for.
Yeah. Rachel, a big part of, Catholic field hockey has a very strong tradition, a great many proud members of alums, great success in the past. Have you had the opportunity to connect with a few alums? I saw that Tara Portland did a Zoom. I think she was the class of 16. She did a Zoom with the team. How have you been able to interact with your alumni base? How are you developing those relationships?
Yeah, Tara Portland led an incredible Zoom session with our team, and we were all sweating, and we spent an hour on Zoom just doing a workout, and we didn't stop moving from the beginning to the end, and it was fantastic because our current team got to know, I think there were 8 alumni on that Zoom. They got to know them pretty intimately, and I think that there's a uniting factor when it comes to, okay, we sweat together, we're in it together, I feel like I know her now. And that connection can be so beneficial to our program because right now this current team, our past, our present, our future, the recruiting piece, that's a whole different story, but our past and our present, if we can connect them, we're gonna be so well united. We'll understand what Catholic field hockey is. So with that, the workout was fantastic and really thankful for the alumni that joined us. However, we've been sending out some email blasts to our alumni, and we're always looking for ways to connect with our alumni base. So our alumni should stay tuned for some updates, maybe a newsletter in their inbox soon.
Oh, that's great. And Bridget, you're an alum, former student athlete of the team that you're now assisting. So you're in the midst of that alumni base. You're kind of the connective tissue between the current team and the alums. What of the alums of the women's basketball program, what do they continue to mean to today's program?
Well, some of them are my very best friends, so that's what they mean to me. I think it's great that Coach Donahue keeps former players on his coaching staff, for example, me and Gabby currently, because that makes it that much easier to stay connected with our former classmates and teammates. My former teammates are all doing incredible things right now, and so a big focus for us has been showcasing that as a way to bring them back into the fold with our team, kind of the way Rachel was talking about, just like getting that united front between current and past players. I believe it was last spring, we did like a Feature Friday type of post on our social media feeds where we wanted to just show the rest of our alumni base, our current players, and anyone else who follows us, what our alumni are up to currently, because they're all in incredible fields and very successful, all thanks to their education here, I would have to imagine.
Mike, there is a strong football alumni base, passionate, involved, engaged. Talk a little bit about, as an alum yourself, so you too, you're in that midst. You're that conduit of connection and all of that. Can you talk a little bit about the football alumni, how they've supported the team in the past, and how they can continue to remain connected to the team going forward?
Right. Yeah, we are really fortunate to have guys that they valued their experience so much here through football and their education that they want to make sure that current guys have that experience, that positive growth. And so, we've had support, great support financially from them to help us do the things that we want to do. We've had also, great support with guys coming back and talking about what it meant to them to excel, especially some from the playoff years in the later 90s. And some guys even after that have come and shared with the team about what it took to get to those high points. And I think the current guys have taken that to heart, and they feel beholden to the guys that have come before them. They feel like they are part of a larger group, not just the 2020 football team, but being a Catholic Cardinal means something to them because they know the guys that came before them, and they expect the same sort of honor from the guys that come after them to their legacy. And I think that's something the alumni have really communicated well, is that this is a bigger picture than just 4 years. This is about becoming something different, and I think that's what I've gotten from our alumni, the football guys, especially when they come back. They're like, when they walk into a room, you can kind of pick them out, like, oh yeah, he played football here, because they have something different. They have a little something more. And I think when we can tie that into the current guys, it's only going to help them go farther. And so I'm excited to keep that connection going. I'm always looking to pull more guys in, and as they go through different phases in their life, a recent alum is going to be able to connect in a very different way than someone, who might have played when the field was over where the law school is now, which I'm sure a lot of the older guys are like, oh man, these guys have it good, and they do. But trying to build those connections and keep it going, because we have a great core group, but there's a lot more guys out there that really, I think, would love to be able to share what it meant to them to be here.
And Bridget, you never left. So obviously there are these unique special qualities about the university that have resonated with you since 2012, 2013, when you were being recruited and you ultimately chose to come here. Why have you stayed? What is so uniquely special about this place that you said, no, that's where I want my career to be?
I feel like it's so cliche, but it really does feel like home for me. From the university itself to this athletic department, it just is so comfortable, and I know that I've found a community here that supports me and that I'm able to support with like my best tools and assets. And I just love it. I love still walking around campus every week, whether it's with a recruit and like pointing out my old residence hall or places where I had classes or stuff like that. I love the nostalgia of it, and I love that I'm able to be a part of like the growth that we're currently experiencing.
Mike, I'd like to stay with you
Sure.
for a moment. There is something clearly special to being a coach, or specifically the head coach at your alma mater. Mm-hmm. What does that mean to you? What emotions are stirred up when you think about that?
A lot. It's strong. Because so much of who I am as a dad, as a coach to these guys, I owe to those coaches. I owe to my teammates. You can kind of hear me getting like emotional about it. It is a debt that I like to pay, back to them, because so much of what I learned on the field and about what it takes, teamwork, discipline, sacrificing, putting somebody else first. To be able to come back here and I taught at other institutions I've been a coach at. I was very important. I wanted guys to know about all that. But then to be able to do the job I love at the place that helped make me what I am is even at a higher level, and,
Sure.
and I think it's hard to put into words the connection I feel, and imparting that to the guys on the team, that you will build something here, the guys that you're with, the players on your team. You'll have connections that'll be different than any other connection you can make in your life. And for me to be able to do that back at Catholic, a place that is so special to me, is really fulfilling. So, and then, the onus being on me of like, let's make sure that we do it the right way and that we get the...
You're the steward of the
Yeah,
program.
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Rachel, you came to Catholic after a very successful stint up in New England, and I happened to notice that there are 2 national championship winning trophies on your desk. Yes, I've noticed, and it gets me fired up. Do those 2 trophies serve as a specific reminder to you of certain expectations, certain values that you want to bring to Catholic? When you look at those trophies, what are you going to take from it to instill upon your group here?
Those are so special to me because I know each and every person that went into it. And I know that created something in me that said, I want to do that for a group of young women. I want to be there with them when they achieve that. I want to be there when they're at the top. And every time I see those trophies, I hear their voices, and they've said, Coach, we just wanted to play the most amount of games we could. And that's really it. It's not about the flashy or the, having them on my desk to look good for recruits. It's really all about hearing them in my head saying, Coach, we just wanted to spend more time together. And it's a constant reminder that in order to get to the top, you gotta just love each other and just want to be there and continue that relationship. And
It's almost as if the wins
it doesn't matter.
are secondary.
Yeah.
Bridget, I'm imagining there are many, many highs and lows within a season. You had an experience, it might have been your senior year, where you were injured for a lot of it. How were you able to contribute to those positive experiences that Rachel's referring to, the voices in her, that she's hearing? How were you able to contribute to those positive experiences when you couldn't necessarily do it out on the court?
That was probably the toughest season I've ever experienced as a player or a coach. I mean, obviously I've only been a coach for a short amount of time, but that was obviously a very personal experience. And it was difficult. It was difficult to go to practice every day and know that I couldn't be out there like contributing physically, but that I had to be there as like a support system for my teammates. And I mean, it was a reciprocal thing. They supported me through the entire, however many, like 2 or 3 months that I was out. And I know that I grew a lot from it. I know a lot of that experience goes into how I like communicate with my players now.
Mike, you came to Catholic after a very successful run as an assistant coach, winning National Assistant Coach of the Year, a very, very successful run. But now that you're the CEO, so to speak, of a small company,
Yeah.
you're no longer a vice president. What's different about that?
So, it's a lot of it is delegating, and then it is evaluating. And that was really different from being, growing from a position coach to a coordinator to assistant head coach. Then all of a sudden, when you're the head coach, there's things on your desk that you probably never, that I had never planned on, and trying to, haggle with the restaurant to get the meals down, and things like that. Really has nothing to do with 3rd and 15, running a blitz at the quarterback. But if you don't do it right, then you're going to wind up, well, guess what, guys? Last game of the year, it's going to be peanut butter and jellies instead because I spent it all on the first road trip. And so those are things that I had to grow into. And, we're doing pretty well with it. Fortunately, there's a lot of support here to help me make those good decisions. I can lean on people. But that was something, those type of duties were very different when all of a sudden you're the boss.
And Rachel, you're jumping into a very similar experience, first year head coach. Are there any jitters? Is it all just enthusiasm and excitement? Nervous about things? What has this transition been like for you? Jumping into the deep end of the pool.
Jumping into the deep end with a lot of extra factors happening around it. But just as Coach just said, he was mentioning that you have to zoom out. And that's been a really important piece to how I've been planning how I want to coach. I love getting in the weeds. And I kind of indulge myself in that. I'd love to clip 150 penalty corners and look for the small trends, and I will do that. I will allow myself that.
That's a little obsessive.
I will allow myself that.
Yeah. I get it. I'm with you.
But, you got to find that way to win.
Yep.
Of course, we're not talking about winning yet, hopefully in the future, but I love getting in the weeds, but I also, having the new head coaching role, I've really had the opportunity to zoom out and really evaluate, okay, what's happening right now? How do I want to respond? How is the team responding to me? And it's just been kind of a methodical, okay, I'm putting one foot in front of the other. Mm-hmm. I'm not jittery, surprisingly. I'm more so excited and just going through every step as methodically as I possibly can.
Bridget, I always like to ask this question of former student athletes, but so you came to Catholic, I want to say in 13 or something like that. What do you wish you knew then that you know now in regards to college coaching, in regards to this is how you need to prepare to become a champion, you won a championship here. What do you wish you knew then that you know now as an experienced assistant coach?
Everything I think a coaching staff does, whether it's on a basketball team, a football team, a field hockey team, it's always in the best interest of the team. I think it's easy, and it definitely happened for me to get caught up in like the individual accolades or lack thereof, or just like the small things that you experience yourself on a day-to-day basis. But what's most important is remembering that you are part of a team, you're part of a unit, and the success of that unit and just the overall happiness of everyone on that team is much more important than your individual wants or desires, I guess. And I know from experience how difficult it is to kind of set that stuff aside and just focus on the team. So I wish I had kind of put more into that.
When you're 19, it's really tough to get out of your own way.
It really is.
I wish I had known that, because at 19 you think, at least I did, I thought, oh, I'm just going to remember all these wins and I'll know the score and I'll remember this. And you know what, I remember the bus trips. I remember the stupid stuff, the horseplay that I get mad at now is what I remember, the guys doing in the interaction. And in '89, we were a really good team. We were 8-2. We beat some really good programs. But what I remember the most is the last game of the year, bus trip to Gannon in Erie, Pennsylvania, and riding on the bus with those guys. And it was freezing at the game. It was like 33 degrees and rainy. It was no fun. It was the second weekend in November. And we won, so that was good.
Rachel, I'm always really interested in looking at, okay, first year head coach, you're going into year one, tons of upheaval in year one. We hope to be able to play games throughout the springtime. I think that's going to, happen for us. What, when all is said and done with year one, whenever that is, what needs to occur in year one for you to take a step back, let's say 6 months from now, 9 months from now, and say year one was a success?
I mean, I just want them to want to continue to be together, and have loved their experience here. So whatever it takes for them to feel that way, I want to help facilitate. Are they happy with the time that they've spent here? Did they feel like they maximized their time? Did they live every single moment of practice? And did we squeeze everything out of it that we could? If we do that, I've done my job.
Mm-hmm. Bridget, this is an important question because obviously you are now filling a new full-time position, an endowed coaching position named after Jamie Roberts, a former assistant coach here. You played for Jamie, you knew Jamie. The fact that you get to serve in this capacity in honoring her, what does this opportunity mean to you?
I find it hard to put into words sometimes, just because it obviously is so heavy of a responsibility in a lot of different ways. I mean, just the very fact that Jamie's family is investing so much in our program puts a lot of pressure on my plate sometimes when I really sit down and think about it. But then more so, it's just the idea of living up to her legacy. And not that I don't think that I ever could, because she was just such an incredible friend and coach and role model. But I'm also just obviously so proud and humbled to be put in this position. And it makes me so happy to think that she is going to live on in this program for eternity, basically.
Mike, I'm really curious, and thank you, Bridget, for that very thoughtful answer. But Mike, I'm really curious as to we were talking about being 19 or so. So when you were 19 and you were slugging it out on the line back in '89 or something like that, did you ever, for the life of you, think that I'm going to be back here and I'm going to be head coach?
Not at that age, but it was pretty shortly after where I started thinking about it. But at that age, I came to Catholic to study politics, world politics specifically, and at that time it was I was specializing in U.S.-Soviet relations, and while I was here, Soviet Union went away. Berlin Wall comes down, and stuff I was learning kind of shifted from current events to history. And it was almost at that time I was like, maybe I should look at the coaching side. And I remember my first year after graduating, I stayed on to help as a part-time assistant and was getting things rolling. And the head coach joked something about well, maybe one day you'll be the head coach here. And I said, yeah, maybe. And
were you surprised that came out of your mouth?
Yeah, I was like, who said that? And wait a minute, I just said that. And then you go on with your career and you move along, but that never left me. That came from a deeper part of me than I regularly accessed, and it just came out. And so that was, and you say feels right in the position. That felt right, and it took a long time to get there, but. When you get to a place that is the right spot for you, then you start to make things fit that didn't fit before, and that's kind of where we're at right now.
So, Rachel, let's take a look at going forward. Well, actually, let's take one step back, but then it allows you to go forward. So, when you said a little earlier that you're very aware of this team, so clearly you've done your video work, you've done all sorts of reconnaissance, inquiries, things like that. What is all of that work? What does it tell you about this current team and its future capabilities? What has it told you about the landmark conference? What did the work in the past propel you to be able to do going forward?
Yeah, so this program, and from what I've seen as I've been learning about Catholic and now that I'm here, is just that they're extremely resilient and passionate. And they want to work and they want to wear the jersey that says Catholic on it. So for me as a coach, that's all I could ever really want is a group of young women that are very proud to be here and ready to work. As far as future state and future objectives, I believe the sky's the limit for us. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mike, for years, Catholic was a member of the Old Dominion Athletic Conference, and then you become head coach, and we joined the New England Women and Men's Athletic Conference, playing games up and down the I-95 corridor. So right before your arrival, we had a certain set of experiences within one conference, and then you arrive, and my goodness, we're playing a whole new set of foes. What has that transition been like? How have you enjoyed being a part of a new conference, having to prepare for different teams? Is there a different style of play from what you've seen of past teams, or?
Yeah, it's interesting. The new MAC is more of a run-heavy conference than much of the country is now, and we have some tremendous option teams you have to prepare for that other teams don't see regularly. And, some things have remained the same in the sense that, when we were in the ODAC, we were the northernmost team in a southern conference. And now that we're in the new MAC, we're the southernmost team of a northern conference. Like, that hasn't changed. But what has changed is a little different style of play, a little more, and it's funny that I wouldn't typically think of New England as being hard-nosed football, but these guys are tough, and they're coming for your lunch if you're not prepared. We may have switched conferences, but like the football level was phenomenal, and it's, I think, going to continue that way. And as we move up and get better, there's going to be a year in, year out battle between the top few teams, I think, in the conference. And I think we're getting into that conversation now. Catholic is, but it is a little different. It was a little funny to see. Previously, you look across TV on Saturdays, college teams are playing. They're throwing the ball 50, 60 times a game. And now we're playing, a team like Springfield from Massachusetts, and they might throw the ball 4 times a game. That's a different game to coach in.
So, Mike, recently, Vinny and Ellen Sica were tremendously generous in their support of the football team, but they have chosen to endow the head coaching position of the football team. You are the first Vinny and Ellen Sica endowed head football coach at Catholic U. What does that mean to you?
It's so exciting. I think, Vinny and his wife are so committed to Catholic and what they've done with this position to show that support at that level, and then more specifically to apply it to the football head coaching position. I feel a tremendous responsibility to live up to what the expectations are, and it's going to help us move forward and become a richer program in the sense of having stability and things that we can rely on. And that kind of commitment from him just builds the love I have for the program and for the alums as the way they've done this. And in the end, I think it puts us closer to where we really belong with a lot of other schools that have endowed coaching positions. When I think of that, I think of the Ivy League, and I think of other, prestigious schools, and that's what we are. And now we are starting to head that direction. But to be the first, and to know that Vinny, a guy who I know, and I'm looking forward to getting to know even better, is really exciting. I'm going to have to get to know him even better and let him know that even though I do feel that responsibility, that doesn't mean I'm going to have to check with him on game plans and things like that. So,
I'm sure he'd want to talk about
well, I'd be
things
happy
as
to
well.
talk with him anyway.
So I have one final question for the group, and we can just kind of go around. It's for all of you. You have different experiences here at Catholic, but what makes Catholic U so special?
I don't mind jumping in. I tell this to our team, I tell it to recruits, and I regularly remind myself that like, this is a place that that allows you to develop across all planes, across every part of your life. And I think Catholic's different in that they don't do it in a strictly instructional way and expect you to just assimilate it. What this place does is it challenges you, it takes you right up to the edge of who you are right now and makes you uncomfortable in a way that you're not sure you can handle. And then the professors or the coaches or, people in the dorms or even, some people in the cafeteria will help you take that next step, not just in the classroom, not just on the football field, not just in the dorms, but in your development of your religious life or your social life, all these areas. This place, to me, is different because it doesn't say, we're training you for a job. This place says, who are you? Why are you here? And what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, I really like what Gut said about it not just being instructional learning. I think every aspect of the university, including our athletic department, it creates an environment where students can learn in an experiential way. I think our location in DC contributes to that. I think just the incredible generosity of former students here who have given back to the university contributes to that in the growth of our university. And then, just from sitting here and speaking to other coaches in this athletic department, I think just the drive and the passion and the love for what we're doing here exudes from every athletic program in this department. And I'm just so proud to be able to sit with other coaches who I know are looking to make this one of the best D3 athletic departments that they possibly can. They're doing everything in their power to contribute to that.
I don't know how I can follow that up. That was incredible. Really, both of those statements, and I'm just so excited to be part of this because of the quality of people, the quality of the athletes, the quality of the support, the quality of everyone around this community. We're centered around building this up and growing it. It's all excitement, it's all love. And it really is a massive blessing to be here and to be able to advocate for a university that not only advocates for your academics and your athletics, but also every other aspect of your life. You get to be an athlete, you get to be a student, and you get to grow in your religious life, and you get to experience study abroad opportunities, you get to feel the love from the community and seek out other opportunities such as internships and clinical opportunities in the area.
It's an and rather than an or.
Exactly. And I think Catholic University has used that as a slogan in the past.
Maybe.
And I've been using it with my recruits because it truly sums up the experience that I've been having and want to have in the future, and I want to impart to my current team. Hey guys, remember, and not or. You can be it all, and we can do it all very well.
Yeah, and that's, everybody comes here thinking, I want to have it all. I want to have it all. And you do have to make sacrifices and value things, make decisions. But there's no place that you can get closer to having it all than here.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today with our Coaches Conversation segment. I certainly encourage you to watch the other Coaches Conversation segment that we have. And most importantly, enjoy the remainder of Cardinal Weekend 2020. We certainly cannot wait to see you again back on campus in person. Take care.